going to stay at the helm of the 2 mile novices, and they're given by a romping 10-12 length.
So, hello and welcome back to the Road to Cheltenham Challenge. This year with myself, Barry Doyle, and the Golden Groom. Last year, of course, we came out 8 points in profit for the show. It was myself and Andrew Bear-White who hit me on the line, shall we say. But Ronan, you're very welcome to the show. We'll be here every Monday on the build-up to Cheltenham. I'm looking forward to it.
Very much so, very much so. Ready to take you on.
Ready to take me on. I'm going to go down through the format of the show. For anyone, I suppose it got a lot of traction last season as I took on Andrew. The Road to Cheltenham Challenge will throw up the Ante-Post King for the new season. The format is as follows. So we'll be doing 17 shows between now and Cheltenham 2022. And we'll be given 17 selections each, and they will account for a point a piece. And that's just a regular Ante-Post selection. We'll be given 2 wild cards, and each of our wild cards will be worth a 2-point bet. The captain's armband is a new feature to the show, and that will go we'll have 1 captain's armband each, and that'll be worth 3 points. And we're going to go for 4 long-range efforts, and they must be 25 to 1 or more. We were debating that earlier on, Ronan, but I think it's a good feature to have. So 4 long-range efforts between now and the Cheltenham Festival, they'll be worth a half a point each, so 0.5. And let's see, I suppose, who comes out on top, Ronan. And I suppose the main thing is that, as a whole, the show and the series that we come out on top.
Yeah, it's just a bit of fun each week. Everybody knows Ante-Post betting is come on in popularity as the years have gone by, and just a bit of a laugh. Don't take it too serious. Let's try and make a bit of profit out if we can. If I promise you, if I can break even by the end of this, I'd be happy enough. So. Let's have a bit of fun every week and see what we can come up with.
Absolutely, and looking forward to the show. We will be doing pre-recorded episodes for the next couple of weeks, but we may introduce the lives on the Monday night to get more interaction. In the comments below, we will have the template so people can get involved from a very early stage. Get in your selections for week 1. I'm going to just run through the format of what we're going to be speaking about on each of the shows. And myself and Ronan were debating this now for the last week or two, what sort of features we were going to add in different to this year's series. But the first one, and look, we'll take you through the features first and foremost, or the segments of the show. The big race review. So we'll be looking back at the big race from the previous weekend, going through that in a bit of detail, kind of breaking it down and giving our comments, I suppose, of the big race at the weekend. We will be looking at the Betfair Chase at Haydock from this weekend. Following on from that, then, we're going to go for a selected performance with a view to Cheltenham. So it might not necessarily be the best performance we've seen over the last 7 days, but a performance that stood out to us with a view towards the Cheltenham Festival. And now we're going to have, I suppose, this is football language, but the over and under section. So maybe a horse that was, or a performance that the horse we felt, we'll look at this individually, but a horse that was maybe overrated in the last 7 days, maybe an overreaction to a particular performance, maybe a horse that was cut too much in price. We'll also be looking at a performance that was we feel underrated. So we'll be looking at this individually. When we need to call someone into the Stewards Room, Ronan Groome, we will be doing so at times on the show. We're going to add a horse to the tracker each week also. So a horse maybe that went slightly under the radar, one that maybe was an eye catcher in a handicap, or perhaps maybe a novice that went under the radar. A horse for our tracker every single week. We'll be given an Ante-Post selection each on the show, and if we need to put in a wild card, a long range effort, or a captain at any stage, we only get 1 captain, of course, we'll be doing so. But Mr. Ronan Groome, the Golden Groome, let's start with the big race of the weekend, which was the Betfair Chase. I've done enough talking. How did you analyse the race? And Aputard was superb, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was superb. Barry, I suppose superb is the word you need to use when you win a Betfair Chase on the bridle, basically. I mean, Rachel took a pole, basically, coming into the straight. You could hear a gasp from the crowd. And what can you can't say, what can you say about Absolute Tardy? He was excellent. Jumped beautifully, travelled like a dream. I think we all kind of know now, and Henry made reference to it, that the horse needs to go left-handed, and that's going to dictate the rest of the season. And he just looked at home all the way through the race. It was never really in doubt for much of the way, and much of that was, I guess, was to do with the way the race developed up front. You never really felt, if you're on Bristol de Mai, you never really felt he was travelling or jumping with his usual zest that he does around Haydock. The writing was on the wall there. And I guess I'm just kind of leading into Barry. I just thought the race kind of blew up a bit in behind, like Imperial Aura fell earlier. Obviously, Next Destination didn't even run. Waiting Patient, he didn't show up. Bristol de Mai didn't show up. And it was really only Royal Pagaille, and obviously we were delighted to see Mick Winters. I'm sure you were as well, delighted to see Chatham Street Lad run into the frame, and that looked like a really nice move now for Mick Winters to send the horse over to get him to finish third in a Betfair Chase. Was a great performance. But just as the form thing, I just be slightly skeptical over how the race developed in behind. And look, as I said, Absolute Tardy did nothing wrong, and probably it's hard not to derive that he's a better horse than last year. And if he is, then he probably does deserve to be Gold Cup favourite now. But I don't know. I still think that form, the Gold Cup form, when we go back to that, is probably going to be the most important form when we go into the race this year. And Manila Endo is stablemate. I still think he could get beaten in every race this season, and I'd still want to have him on side going into the Gold Cup. I just think that 3-2.5 form around Cheltenham is significant, and I probably think there was maybe slightly overreaction to Absolute Tardy's win. I don't think he should maybe is clear favourite in the Gold Cup now, and that was my main takeaway from the race. Barry, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's still quite lightly raced, isn't he, over 3 miles? But it's not unusual, Ronan Groome, or Mr. Golden Groome, as I'm going to start calling you on this episode, as the Vincinator calls it. It's not unusual for a horse or for a runaway winner in the Betfair Chase, and we've seen it in the past. Obviously, Bristol de Mai has done it. Going back to the days of Kiddo Star, Silviniaco, Conti, Q Card. It's a race that, early in the season, you can see kind of the field well strung out. I do agree with you. I think he couldn't have done it any easier. Look, it's been said. It doesn't need to say. I think Rachel was quite clever, wasn't she? She sat in behind. The horse jumped. He travelled. The race unfolded in front of him, and there was a lot of talk going into the race about he has never sort of won first time up. Last season, beaten by Castle Grace Paddy the season before that. But that was, I suppose, over a shorter trip. This horse, I loved him going into the Savills last year. I think he's stepped forward, even though the race did, I suppose, fall apart a little bit here. I still see a bit of improvement in this horse. As I said, he's only had I think there was his third run over 3 miles, to my knowledge. Could be wrong with that now, but 7-2 favourite for the Gold Cup. I mean, he's rock solid, isn't he? I wouldn't be steaming in at that price now, but could not have done it any better. Just a word for Chatham Street Lad. Obviously, he spoke to Mick, and he had it spot on. Just sat in behind, picked up the pieces. Sean Quinlan was given a clever ride. Just to note, though, the second and the third, both were reported to have had wounds after the race. The vets reported wounds for both Royal Pagaille and Chatham Street Lad. So, I mean, I'm not sure what actually, I suppose, the diagnosis was, but just I did read that in the report.
Yeah. I was going to come on to that. We in our next section, that's one of my horses I'm going to talk about. But just to quickly go on the thing, I did express when we were talking on our preview podcast, I was skeptical of what Absolute Tardy. First time out, we did mention that a couple of times, and in hindsight's a wonderful thing. Maybe you would get caught out for race fitness more over 2 miles than you would over 3 miles. Maybe that wasn't as big a factor as we thought. But all the word actually over closer to the race I heard was that A Plus Tard was ready to roll. Like really, they really thought he was fit, and it did play out that way. But in hindsight, maybe if he was going to get caught out for race fitness, he'd do so over 2 miles where it's quick. But around Haydock, which the track really seemed to suit him, he bowled along there, and Rachel popped away, and it was never in doubt, really, was it? It was, you could see. I wonder what price he traded down the back. He must have been long odds on at that, even at that early stage when Bristol to Mile wasn't travelling. So yeah, no, look, Barry, I agree.
I suppose the one thing though, and I take that, but it was an absolutely piss poor race. Like to be fair, like
yeah, it did. The form was.
It was absolutely right. I mean, if you looked at, it was. I was looking at the race in advance, and you're thinking, right, could it take 6-4 in A Plus Tard, given his form first time up? You look at Royal Pagaille, had form at Haydock, but heavy was in the description for his wins last season. He went down to the field, waiting patiently. Has always sort of disappointed. 10-year-old Bristol Mile the same. Imperial Ora we thought was interesting. He was travelling well for a period in the race before coming down, but after that, I mean, you're looking at Cheltenham Street Lad, and that's why I thought the horse could run well, because I'm looking at the rest of the runners in the field, and I feel as though there's a lot probably on the way down rather than up. Cheltenham Street Lad, even though he is a 9-year-old, I thought could run a good race, and he did so. But A Plus Tard, look, it's been said. Don't need to say any more about him. I think he's rock solid at 7-2 for a Gold Cup, and I'd probably just about side with him over anything else. Like, I wouldn't be rushing to back a horse in the Gold Cup mad to take A Plus Tard on. I do like Chantry House at a bigger sort of a price, but I think he's a rock solid favourite for the Gold Cup, Ronan Groome. Second sort of segment of the show, Ronan, we're going to go for our selected performance in the last sort of 7 days of racing. So you can go back prior to the weekend if you like, but with a view to Cheltenham, of course. What was your selected performance of the last 7 days?
Yeah, I liked Brave Man's Game, I have to say. At Haydock, I thought he was excellent. Speaking on the Thursday podcast, I was a bit sceptical that he was taking on older horse, second season chasers, second season horses again here, and just wanted to thought he was a bit short to do that, but there was never really a moments where he jumped beautifully fence to fence. He set his own pace, and Itchy Feet just couldn't get up to him to kind of put him under pressure or anything. Maybe that's a slight worry going forward. Maybe when he's in a bigger field or he gets competition for the lead or whatever up front, it might be a different story. But I just love the way the horse has been campaigned. There's a lot of talk about the British horses. They don't get hard races before Cheltenham, that sort of thing. Well, Brave Man's Game has been campaigned in open company basically for his first 2 races. He's taken on 2 graduation chases, and theoretically he goes for the grade 1 now, the Cotto Star, I think, on St. Stephen's Day. And theoretically he's actually taken a step down, even though he's going into grade 1 level, because he's going against novices. Now looking forward, I think we're going to use this section to look forward a lot, but Cotto Star winners wouldn't really inspire you if you did go and waltz around Kempton. Yeah, great, they've won a grade 1, but it wouldn't really inspire you going forward for Cheltenham. The Cotto Star, I granted, obviously Coney Gree won that race on his way to winning the Gold Cup, but Cotto Star winners wouldn't really inspire you in general. But I just love the way the horse did it, and I actually think 2.5 miles could be where he ends up at Cheltenham. He could be set for a collision course with Bob Ollinger again. And I guess that was the question around the weekend, Barry. If you had a choice, would you take Bob Ollinger now or Brave Man's Game? Who would you go off the cuff right now?
Right now, Brave Man's Game. But
yeah, I agree.
I don't know if they're going to take each other on in the latter half of the season, though. I get what you're saying, the 2.5 miles. I just think this horse is going to be stepped up and tripped this season, Ronan. Having said that, one of his biggest assets is his jumping and making ground at his fences. But I just, given the fact that, given the way that the Ballymore worked out last season, given the fact that Bob Ollinger is probably going to end up in a marsh. The one thing I would say, this guy keeps on ringing me. The one thing I would say is that I think Bob Ollinger is quite pacey, and at the end of last season, after watching the Ballymore, my thoughts were I wouldn't be surprised, given Henry's record, if this horse was campaigned over the minimum over fences for this season. But obviously, speaking to Henry, and if the betting is anything to go by, he's going to end up in a marsh chase. But we are going to come on to Bob Ollinger maybe later in the show. But at the moment, I see Brave Man's Game going up in trip. And for an RSA chase, I think he's a worthy favourite at the moment. I think he's in around, is it 5-1 favourite for that? Given what we've seen, no, I think he's a proper animal, to be honest. And if you were to put a gun to my head at this stage, over 2.5 miles plus, over fences, I'd probably side with Brave Man's Game.
Just coming quickly again, I agree with you, but I do think he could be a marsh horse. Just for the fact that you said the jumping, the travelling, and if he goes to Kempton and he wins the 3 mile over grade ones there, it's not a ridiculous thing to say that he could come back down a trip when you take into consideration the way the course is at Kempton. Shamblu obviously did it last year. He came back and tripped for the marsh. I just think Brave Man's Game could do the same. They could utilise his jumping there, and look, people will say, "Oh, Bob Ollinger flew by him in the Ballymore." Well, that was over hurdles, and it's hard not to surmise that Brave Man's Game has improved significantly for fences this season. So at this moment in time, Bob Ollinger, of course, he's a really exciting horse, and he has the world at his feet, and he could go and blow aside of the water next time in a grade 1 or a grade 2. But at this moment in time, Brave Man's Game has got 2 really solid runs in the book, and for me, he's really interesting going forward now.
Yeah, I think to be fair, at this point in time, he is the best novice seen over so far this season in terms of his jumping. And I get your point. His asset when he gets rolling. Given the fact that he was well put in his place last year in the Ballymore, and Nichols' recent record to kind of avoid Cheltenham, would that be a possibility, or do you see this horse actually definitely going to Cheltenham?
I've heard that. I've heard Nichols was a bit sceptical about maybe Cheltenham, but I'd say play that by ear, see what happens at Kempton first. I think they'd want to be very disciplined to not give in to the temptation of run at Cheltenham with a horse that good. I think that's I'd be surprised if he didn't, if it came around at the time that he didn't.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I'm sure it won't be the last time we're going to be talking about Brave Man's Game, or Bob Ollinger for that matter. Selected performance for myself in the last 7 days with a review to Cheltenham. Hollow Games. Very exciting horse. And I was surprised Gordon ran the horse on good ground. Now, I know he's had a good record in the race. Sam Crow won the race for Kira, Fury Road and Death Duty, all previous winners for Gordon. And obviously it is the local track. But this horse, I think, I don't think he wants good ground whatsoever. I was kind of afraid when I saw the tap spin turning in, and he was quite nimble over his hurdles, but when I saw the taps, I said, is this horse going to let himself down on good ground? He's such a big, raw horse. I think the more juice in the ground for this lad, the better. With a view to Cheltenham, I just think, look, for a big horse, he was very slick over his hurdles. And when he got rolling up the straight, as I said, first stride or two coming, turning in, it looked like he was going to be tapped for a bit of toe. And maybe you could mark up some of the horses in behind, because I think this lad is quite good. And I would say Albert Bartlett, perhaps 8-1. He has gone to the head of the market in the Albert Bartlett. The Ballymore, it wouldn't be beyond all possibilities if it did come up on the slow side. if it was soft ground at Cheltenham. So I wouldn't be putting all my eggs in the Bartlett basket, because I think this lad is. I don't think he's slow. I just think softer conditions is going to be the key to him. I think he's a fair machine now. And Davy Russell's comments afterwards, I think, but when he put the question to him, the horse, and when you see a horse hitting the line like that at Navan, I think this lad is very, very good, and he will be on my shortlist certainly for this show. But he was my selected performance of the week. Ronan Groome, next segment of the show, the over and under section.
Yeah.
Go on, give us a start with the over. What was your most overrated performance of the last 7 days, Ronan Groome?
Hollow games.
You're having a laugh, are you?
It's a game of opinion.
Did you just do this for pure entertainment, or because you didn't know?
It's the first, and it won't be the last time we disagree. But look, isn't that why the game's so good, Basil? It's the game of opinions. It's all subjective, but God Almighty, I saw a headline comparing hollow games to, not comparing, but Sam Crow was in the same headline as hollow games. Now, I just think that's a bit far-fetched. I saw he was. It was a County Meath man who wrote the story as well, but it was. He didn't write the headline name, mind you, but I just thought, listen, he was good. He quickened away nicely, but the time of the race, I think it was 11 seconds slower than the maiden hurdle. Noah's Light won, the Declan Queally horse earlier on the card. I mean, we talk about the Grade 1 breaking up. This was always going to be a poor race, this Grade 3, and it usually is a better race, but the Joseph Bryan's mare in second there, and then you had basically a load of summer horses. John Ryan's. They went very steady.
Can I just say something about that? Now, I don't mean to cut in across you, but this is your part of this is your segment. But on that, they went. That was, I suppose, given the fact that this horse is stamina is probably his biggest quality, and soft ground on good ground. It went an absolute dawdle early on, so it did turn into a bit of a sprint. But go on.
Yeah, so, and I was going to come on to that. So in that case, he showed more pace than anything else. So I don't understand then why is he getting such a big warm right up front for the Albert Bartlett, because he hasn't really shown much staying ability there. He's quickened away of going a dawdle. Like, would you not suggest maybe he could be a Ballymore horse in that case? I just think, in general, though, my main conclusion of the race is just not to trust the performance. I just think races that are run at a dawdle like that, you just can't take that form with 100% conviction. And I want to see him do it again, to be honest. Look, that's, go on. That's really what I kind of...
Yeah, so I can't wait for all these debates as the season goes on with Mr. Ronan Groome. But anyway, the one thing I would say about that is I just felt everything was against him, and for him to come out and for him to be eyeballed. How good some of the horses that eyeballed him were, I don't know. But in fairness, he had an opportunity to crack, and the horse just I thought he just delivered, and more than delivered. But look, this is your section. What's your most underrated performance, Ronan Groome?
Yeah, another one we touched on earlier on. I think Royal Pagaille is potentially interesting going forward. Look, people look at the form and they'll say, 22 lengths beaten. He's run no sort of race. Look, it was good ground. I think it's well documented. There's a horse that needs soft ground. As you mentioned earlier on, he finished with a cut. And I just think better or softer ground, and potentially in the King George, where I think he goes next. If it came up soft, he has won around Kempton before, and a track that suits him well. I wouldn't rule him out at a big price running into the frame, something like that. I just think people might overreact slightly to the way the Betfair Chase worked out, and I wouldn't give up on this horse going forward. I thought he ran okay, especially in spite of the way he jumped as well. A few sketchy jumps here and there. I think he'll come on for it. Hopefully he comes out of the race okay with that cut in the leg, but I think he will come on for it. Fitness-wise, soft ground King George would get me slightly interested in him at a big price. Maybe to run into the frame, something like that.
Interesting. I'm probably going to be hammered for this, by the way. Maybe not so much by you, but certainly in the comments, I can guarantee you. But my most overrated performance is simply a price thing, right? How do horses cut Bob Ollinger for a Cheltenham race, and he jumps like that. Like going into the race, the world's his oyster. He could jump like an Ergemine did last year, right? We don't know. After the Ballymore last year, the world is at his feet, and it still is at his feet. But I just think you're expecting a little bit more, aren't you? Especially given the fact that he was, 2-1 in places before the race, before he even made his chasing debut. I just thought there was a lot of, especially coming up the straight. I just didn't think I would have expected to see a little bit better from him over his fences. Moving into graded company, I heard one or two people saying that the quality of the race. You had Bacardi's in there, you had Master Mac. She had some good novice hurdlers going chasing in the race. So maybe it was a good beginners, but. I don't know, there was just some signs in there. There's some clues in the race for me to think that this lad has a bit of work to do on his jumping.
He's a bit skewy. He was a bit kind of jumped out to his side, yeah.
Yeah, he sort of nodded on landing. He wasn't much better, at the next one. I don't know. I just think he's 6-4 now. Boyle Sports cut him to 6-4 from 5-2 for a Marsh chase. Now, when you look down at the market, I know bookmakers tend to overreact, but to me now that is absolutely very short. This lad is obviously a bit of a monster on his day. Over hurdles last year was probably the best novice hurdler we've seen last year across all the divisions. But for me, if you ask me a question about Brave Man's Game and Bob Ollinger, 2.5 miles now at this stage, based on what we've seen and the clues we've got, I'd be taking Brave Man's Game simply because he's making lengths at his fences where I felt Bob Ollinger has a bit of work to do. So we'll see, does he improve? But to me, there was an overreaction, certainly from a price point of view. The most underrated performance for me, this horse went into the race rated 127. And he's had a bit of experience over hurdles. Barrichello in the first race. My father used to nickname me Barrichello. He was into the Formula One and he used to call me Barrichello. So if you're looking for a nickname for
Ruben Barrichello.
Ruben's Barrichello. Some useful enough types have won this listed novice hurdle at Haydock in the past. Grand Sancy won it before for Paul Nichols. The horse that finished second to Mr. Don't ask me to pronounce it. Limbrado Lad, was it? Won it last year. But he's an interesting type of horse. I think he's certainly one that's improving. He had a couple of runs over hurdles last year. I think his wind was catching him. He's had wind surgery since the summer break. He's 2 on the bounce now. And he looks a hardy type of a horse. I was very impressed with his jumping, actually. From the front, he made all. He's got quotes at 33-1 for Supreme Novices Hurdle. I'm not sure. I just think he is improving. So whether he goes for a handicap now, I'm not sure whether he runs in another, I suppose, listed or novice race. But I do think this horse, the performance was slightly underrated. I thought he was very good at Haydock for the McCains. He's one certainly that I have my eyes on next time. Next section of the show. Do you want to come in there on anything I said? Do you disagree, agree? What's your thoughts?
No, I agree. Okay, I agree with what you said about. I agree with what you said about Bob Ollinger. Just a few jumps. I'm not saying everything he did was poor, but
kind of lost you there, Mr. Groome. What price was Envoy Allen for the Marsh Chase this time last year? We'll bear with you. You'll be back to us in a sec, I'm sure.
Sorry, I lost you there for a sec.
Yeah, you're okay. So what price was Envoy Allen for the Marsh Novices Chase this time last year?
Oh, fight was he? He's very short, wasn't he? Oh, geez, I couldn't tell you. He must have been short. He must have been.
Based on that jumping performance, 6-4, you'd want to be absolutely maddened ahead. It's a novice chase around Cheltenham. Some of the horses in the market, just to kind of pick up off that. I mean, Willie Mullins, we haven't even seen any of the Mullins horses yet. Brave Man's Game, as you said.
Yeah.
Could he stay at 2.5 miles? There's horses in there. My Drogo, obviously, was slightly disappointed when he came down at Cheltenham. I didn't think he was running a fabulous race, but I don't know. Dusart, could he be at the minimum? Could he be 2.5 miles? There's lots of horses here with potential in this sort of division, and 6-4 is to me it's skimpy now. Next segment of the show, Ronan Groome, tracker entry, a horse that you want to put in your tracker from the last 7 days. Who should we be putting in there?
I liked, again, I'm going to Saturday, Barry. I liked a horse called Monsieur Lecoq, who ran in the 2 mile handicap chase, 2 mile 1 furlong handicap chase. As anyone who watched the race will know, he jumped out to his left more or less the whole way, and he didn't have any right really to be with the main group as they went into the straight. He kept with them all the way. He wasn't beaten that far in the end, and I just think he's a horse that might just be a little bit overrated next time on account of that. I think he's a good horse for an Ascot, and I actually think he could benefit. Maybe just coming up slightly in trip, 2 or 3 furlongs mightn't suit him that badly at all. I don't know why he jumped to his left, but he's slightly worrying that maybe it was a little nick or an injury. I just think it was an impressive run from him, given that he did jump to his left to still finish so close to the main group. Obviously, Before Midnight is a nice progressive horse that won the race, and Amula Gold is in really good form and travels well around Ascot and nearly won as well. But Monsieur Lecoq, I think watch out for him. Maybe back at Ascot, one of those 2 mile handicaps again. I'd forgive him that run and actually mark him up, because I thought it was quite good that he stayed with the field despite jumping out to his left continuously throughout the race.
I think we got the most of that, Ronan Groome. You need to give Vodafone a call. Missler, well, I was going to pronounce it. My French probably won't be as good as you. Monsieur Lecoq. I did notice in the race. I actually kind of fancied him for the race, but I did notice his jumping was notably, as I said, to his left. I take that point. Tracker entry for me, Ronan Groome, Hartir Dudery. I'm going back to Warwick last Wednesday, actually, a midweek fixture. The 4-year-old son of Capgard, a French import. He was a winner in France over 2 miles. It was a flat race over 2 miles on soft ground. It was only a 3-runner race in Le Mans. But this horse is a really sort of imposing looking horse by Capgard. Traveled pretty strongly now. Now, the strength of the race, I'm not sure. There was a couple of bumper winners in there. And this particular race has been won by some smart types. This novice race has been won by some smart types in the past. Kadzan, Janwert, Gardla Victor, all names that made nice novice hurdlers. Of course, Janwert was he well fancied for a Ballymore once upon a time. Kadzan, of course, from the Skeletons last year. So just, I was really impressed by the performance. The way he travelled through the race, sat in behind, kind of dropped the bride, travelled strongly, but wasn't overly keen or anything like that. It was very slick, except for 2 out, where he made a kind of a sketchy mistake, but wasn't even touched by the whip. Came clear nicely, showed a nice turn of foot. I think I saw quotes of 33-1 for a Supreme Novice. I'm not sure. It's far too early to be even putting them in that bracket, but I think this horse is one for the tracker and one to look forward to. I think as the season goes on, we'll be winning races and we'll probably make a lovely chaser in time. That's Harter Dudery has gone into my tracker from the last 7 days in racing. This is my favourite section of the show. I think as it goes on. As the season goes on, Ronan Groome, the tracker entry. We'll be looking at handicaps, novices, horses that go into the tracker every single week. So, the time of the show we have all been waiting for. Ronan Groome, this is your first Ante-Post selection on the road to Cheltenham Challenge. The floor is yours. Take it away, my good friend.
Mayor's Chase, and I'm going for one at the top of the market, Barry, which might surprise you. Going for Eddie May, a mare I've always liked. You can get 9-2 general across the board. Look, I just think this is a soft division this year, and I think she has by far the best form in the race. She wouldn't be outplacing a Ryanair, hence why she was only 3 lengths away from Allaho at Thurles last season. I'm getting her in now because I believe she's down to run at Thurles again this week, or could run at Carlisle on Sunday, so I think the price could potentially move. But I just think she's rock solid. She was second to Colreevy. We all know what Colreevy did after that at Punchestown. Willie loves winning a mare's race at Cheltenham, so he's going to be thinking about this race all season. And it's just very easy to imagine her going off 2-1, south of that maybe on the day. It's very easy that this race could cut up, and that could be the sort of thing. So I'm happy to get 9-2 about Eddie May as my first bet in the challenge.
Were you tempted to maybe put her in as a wild card or the captain's arm? And I know you have a bit of a fling for Eddie May.
Started off gradually slow, and then I'll save my my big guns then for the closer to the time.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Ronan Groome. We did speak about the format, so a couple of different additional features. I'll go through them again at the end of the show. But my Ante-Post selection for episode 1 of the Road to Cheltenham Challenge. It's a big price horse. It is the Supreme Novice Hurdle winner, fingers crossed, and the Royal Bond winner this weekend, Mr. Mighty Potter, 25-1. I've backed him at 33-1 actually prior to his running down Royal, but the Royal Bond, I think he'll take a lot of beating this weekend upcoming. So I'm getting him in the team ahead of the Royal Bond. This lad has plenty of pace and class. He's only run twice in his life. He's unbeaten, but I think this lad could be a Supreme Novice Hurdle contender for Gordon Elliott. And wouldn't it be fitting after the year without Gordon last year at the Cheltenham Festival? Race 1, on day 1, Gordon Elliott, can he take out the Supreme Novice Hurdle? Ronan Groome, It took a lot for me to put a county median horse here, number 1 on the challenge, but we've gone with him. I think 25-1. He'd probably, if he wins the Royal Bond this weekend upcoming, I'm sure he is going to half in price. This lad has lots of class. He's jumping at Down Royal. It'll want to improve, that is for sure. Yeah, I like the look of him a lot, and I'm getting him into the team sheet at 25-1. But I'm going to surprise you. Well, it might not be a surprise for many people, but look, let's stop the messing around here. Let's put in the team captain, 3 points. Let's get him in ahead. We don't know what's going to happen, of course, in the Tingle Creek. And Ergemine probably going to go for the hilly way at Cork. But let's get him into the team sheet. There's 5-1 still available on an Ergemine. We put him up on the jump season preview. I think it was 6-1 at the time. This lad, I heard a comment from Barry Geraghty, who sat on the horse last year, and he said, what did he said about him? He's in the Sprinter Sacra mould. And I think that's big coming from Barry Geraghty. We never got to see the showdown at Cheltenham last year, but this lad, 3 points. He is the team captain for the season. Get him in the team. All aboard Team and Ergemine. And that's my team captain. But look, Roland, would you like to play a long range effort, or would you like to wait for the next week's episode?
I'll hold my long range effort. I want to keep my artillery till later on in the season.
So that's it. There you have it. Selections for this week. Ronan Groome, Ellie May at 9-2 for the Mayor's Chase. I'll pick Mighty Potter 25-1, 1 point. He's my selection for this week. And I've put in the team captain, which is Ergemine, at 5-1. The rules, of course, for the show. The price must be with two bookmakers or more. The format is 17 selections. Just to remind you, 17 shows. This is the first show. 17 selections at 1 point each. We're going to go for 2 wild cards, which is worth 2 points. One captain, he's in the team in Ergemine for me this week. So one captain is worth 3 points. That's the stake for that. And of course, 4 long range efforts, all 0.5 selections, and they must be 25-1 or bigger. So I could have put him in as a long range effort there, Mr. Mighty Potter, but I'm putting him in as a selection for week 1. Can't wait to see you next week, Ronan. Enjoyed the show. Some nice added features, and who can be the Ante-Post King 2022 on the road to Cheltenham Challenge. 17 weeks of it. I'm looking forward to it. And we'll see you next week.
Cheers, Barry. You're there.
Is that good? Happy with that?
Yeah, as long as you're happy with it. If you felt it was that my reception wasn't bad, was poor earlier on, I mean, we can always...
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Some nice features. And I might just piece it in here just very quickly as well, just encourage engagement as well. 1 second, just before we go, I'll just piece this in, right? So don't forget, everyone, we got involved last year. We had lots of engagement last year. We will put the template below. Get involved over the 17 weeks. Put in your selections. Let us know what your wild cards, your long range efforts, and your team captain. But as the season goes on, fill out the template and see, can you beat me or Ronan in terms of points and profitability as we move towards the Cheltenham Festival 2022. See you next week.